Hello, I'm Mark Anderson, roving editor of American Free Press, and this is an AFP commentary here on AmericanFreePress.net. Recently I got quite a surprise when the local paper was thrown in my front yard, and I learned that the small town of Weslaco, Texas, in southernmost Texas in the Rio Grande Valley, is also falling prey to the rating agencies that is menacing nation states and even at the international level. Here in this small town I referred to, the local paper says, city leaders remain optimistic a week after meeting in Dallas with Standard & Poor's, the major investment consulting agency who last month downgraded the United States government's credit rating from AAA to AA+. The city of Weslaco was last downgraded in January 2010 from a rating of A- to BBB+. The stable to negative outlook was due to a, quote, continued deterioration of the city's financial reserves, end quote, according to a report released by S&P itself. Very interesting, is it not, what happens even at the international and national levels is happening so close to the grassroots. These very same agencies are involved. Now, as American Free Press reported in AFP number 35, dated August 29, 2011, in an article derived from the National Journal in that edition of AFP, we noted here, during a meeting between German Prime Minister Angela Merkel and French President Nicolas Sarkozy, the leaders of the financial wars, the three rating agencies, were present at the secret meeting and dictated the terms. Now, the article goes on to explain a number of things, some very disturbing things about the bankers, the private central bankers, and their bagmen and their deputies in these rating agencies and what they're doing overseas with regards to sovereign nation states and their credit ratings and their economies. This article from the National Journal that AFP ran goes on to note, as soon as a country falls below a certain rating limit set by Fitch, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's, those are the three top rating agencies, the financial derivative spread shoots up. For example, Mrs. Merkel assured us that Greece was saved in May 2010 with 110 billion euros. Included in this sum were 85 billion euros for credit default swaps, but only a year later Greece was once again in the red, 330 billion euros. Two weeks later it was 350 billion euros. The article concludes with a little commentary. Those who still vote for politicians in the service of the financial mafia and who wish to bring our future generations into serfdom are clearly on the side of what this National Journal calls the capitalist criminals, referring to the rating agencies and the bankers with whom they're in a unholy alliance, one might say. Now, all of this is very interesting from the grassroots on up, just exactly how much clout these rating agencies have. But we have to remember the fundamentals in order to see through the fog of all this. Now, one of the main things to keep in mind is that nation states should not buy money at interest from private, for-profit central bankers. Money, whatever one's arguments or thoughts about money may be, needs to be certain things. It needs to be a creation of the political sovereign. There can be local currencies sort of heading that direction, but ultimately that's what should happen. Money also cannot be bought at interest from the private bankers. That's why the political sovereign creates it interest-free as a sovereign act. The money, its quantity, should be based on the productivity of the nation, and the quantity would have to be therefore significantly increased to make up for the sore lack of purchasing power that's plaguing the world. We are not overwhelmed by too much money in circulation on Main Street. We do not have enough purchasing power, not nearly enough. And a nation has all the natural resources that it needs and the ingenuity and labor of the people to make this happen. A nation is its own credit. Its own credit is built into the very fabric of what a nation state ought to be. The idea that nations need creditors and therefore rating agencies come into play is absurd on its face. Now, one way of seeing through this even more so is to look at, among other possible solutions, the social credit system conceived by the late Scottish engineer Clifford Hugh Douglas, and I've covered the Social Credit Congress, an annual event in 2009-2010. It just got done happening in early September this year. It takes place under the Pilgrims of St. Michael, a group up there in the Rougemont, Quebec area, just east of Montreal, that's where it's located. But that annual Congress outlines social credit, which would follow many of the basic rudiments of economics that I just got done outlining. You can read more about that at michaeljournal.org and occasionally in the pages of American Free Press and on this website. So we'll see you next time, and this is some important things to keep in mind as we try to see through the fog of the money dilemma created by the banksters. We'll see you next time on AmericanFreePress.net. I'm Mark Anderson.